Welcome to Rusty Rails Educational Video.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tweetsie Railroad. We thank y'all for joining us today on the 4th of July. Please wait for the cowboys and cowgirls to drop the chains before boarding the train car of your choice. Our first train departs at 10:30.
How does a steam locomotive work? Find out in this video. When I was a kid, I was enamored with steam locomotives, and I still am. But when I was a kid, I did not know how steam locomotives work. But this video will explain how they work. Thanks to the North Carolina Transportation Museum, they had this poster out in front of their steam locomotive, 1031. Which I will use as a demonstration a little bit later in this video. Locomotive number 1031 was located in the back shop of the North Carolina Transportation Museum. Now enough talk about 1031. Let's talk about how a steam locomotive works. A steam locomotive is basically a giant tea kettle on wheels. But a little bit more complicated than a tea kettle. As you can see, there are many different parts to a steam locomotive, such as the firebox, the boiler, the throttle, the steam dome, the dry pipe, the smoke box, the valve, the piston, the valve gear, the driving wheels, and the tender. There is another part of the boiler I forgot to mention, the flues, which are the pipes leading from the firebox to the smoke box. Now, a steam locomotive is a pretty simple concept. A fire is burned in the firebox, whether it be coal, wood, or oil. Smoke and hot gases are formed in the firebox, which pass through the flues, which are covered in water along with the firebox. It is mighty important for the fireman to keep the top of the firebox covered with water, also known as the crown sheet, for if he doesn't, there could be a boiler explosion, and that's not a very good day on the railroad. Once the water starts to boil, the steam rises up to the highest point of the locomotive, which would be the steam dome. As pressure rises, the pressure gauge starts to climb. Once the pressure gauge reaches its maximum operable pressure, the safety valve, which is not on this poster, will go off, telling the engine crew that the locomotive has reached maximum pressure. After the conductor has given the all-clear for the engineer to make a movement, he blows the whistle twice, or 3 times. 2 times to go forward, and 3 times to back up. Then he sets the valve gear for the direction of travel. For this instance, let's say the locomotive's going to go forward. He'll set the valve gear in the forward position and open up the throttle, which allows steam through the dry pipe into the valve. The valve controls which side of the piston the steam acts on. So say the locomotive is sitting with a piston all the way towards the front. Steam will start acting in the front of the piston, pushing it on back. Meanwhile, on the other side, which would be the fireman's side, the opposite is happening. It will be pushing from behind the piston to push it forward. Once the steam locomotive's wheels have rotated about 85% of the way, the steam is released out the blast pipe and out the smokestack. That's where the iconic chuffing of a steam locomotive comes from. As the steam is shot out the stack, a vacuum is created in the smoke box, which brings air through the firebox, creating a hotter fire which will boil more water. Now, having the fire and water in the boiler boiling away, and the engineer using it, there must be a way to get water in the boiler. That would be where the injector comes in, and where the tender comes into play. The tender holds the reserve water and fuel for the locomotive. Now, I'm going to go on to 1031 and show you what I'm talking about. Here is the locomotive 1031 at the North Carolina Transportation Museum. It is a 460 10-wheeler. Now, let's get a closer look at 1031. If you look closely, you see those two pipes coming up from the tender? Those are the injector lines for the locomotive. If you look closely, you can see the butterfly fire door that the fireman would use to shovel coal into the firebox. The firebox runs all the way into the second driving wheel. Beyond the firebox is the rest of the boiler, where the tubes and flues are. The first dome that you see is the steam dome. That's where all the steam created for the locomotive would be risen to, and the pipe coming out from it is where the whistle would go. The two black things on top are its safety valves. Now, a safety valve is a device which relieves the excess pressure. Now let's head on down to the cylinders. 1031 is a superheated locomotive, as it has piston valves for the valve and for the piston. Once the engineer had set the direction of travel with the valve gear, which 1031 has wall charts valve gear, the steam would act on the piston and start to move the wheels via the driving rods. And once the locomotive had made a half rotation, the exhaust would shoot out the stack. Now, where does the locomotive keep its water and coal if it needs more? In the tender. Now, with 1031 being on static display, it really doesn't show what I'm talking about. So now let's head over to a place that has a live operating steam locomotive, and that would be Tweetsie Railroad. The locomotive in question is just like 1031, which is superheated, and the locomotive is locomotive number 190, the Yukon Queen. If you liked what you've seen so far, please give the video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell to be notified about future uploads. Also, join our Discord. Link is down in the description down below, and channel memberships are now active. You can join by the join button or the link in the description down below. Some of the perks of becoming a member are early access to new videos, member shoutouts, and photo and status updates. And we hope to see you along with the Rusty Rails crew really soon. Now that the locomotive number 190, the Yukon Queen, and her train are in town, let's take a look at her tender. Locomotive number 190's tender holds the coal and the water for the locomotive. The fireman is filling up the tender from the water tower. Now that the locomotive's tender is full of water, let's get a little bit closer to the actual locomotive. Unlike 1031, which was a 460 10-wheeler, locomotive number 190 is a 282 Mikado style type locomotive. The fireman would shovel coal into the firebox, which goes all the way to the last driving wheel. Once steam pressure is created, it goes up to where the whistle is, which is the steam dome. The two black pieces a little behind the steam dome are locomotive 190 safety valves. The dome in front is the sand dome, which puts sand onto the railroad tracks to give more traction. When the engineer opens up the throttle, steam is directed into the pistons like before, and depending on how the Wall-Schwartz valve gear is set, if you look closely, locomotive number 190 is set in forward, so it will be pushing the piston back. Now let's take a look at locomotive number 190's injector. Right here is locomotive number 190's injector, and the fireman is currently putting water in the boiler. Let's follow the pipe to see where the water enters the boiler. As you can see, it enters as far away as possible from the firebox. The reason why it's so far away from the firebox is the water entering the boiler is colder than the surrounding heat from the firebox. While the fireman was putting water in the boiler, he grabbed the fire rake and raked locomotive number 190's fire. The fireman will occasionally do this to smooth out the fire bed. Enough water has entered the boiler, so the fireman turns off the injector. He first turns off the steam and then turns off the water from the tender. Another job of the fireman is to grease all the side rods of the locomotive and a few other components as well, along with oiling the different parts of the locomotive as well. As you can see on locomotive number 190, there are very many components that need to be greased. A trip after the fireman greased around, he went around oiling the different parts that needed oil. Just like the grease points of locomotive number 190, there are also a ton of oil link points for this engine as well. Now let's review what we've gone over today. The fireman will shovel coal into the firebox, creating heat and boiling the water in the boiler. He'll shovel the coal from the tender behind the locomotive. Smoke and hot gases from the fire travel through the boiler, through the flues, which help boil the water, and the smoke will go out the smokestack in the smoke box. Steam rises up to the steam dome, where the whistle is. Inside the steam dome is also where the throttle is. When the engineer pulls out on the throttle, it opens up and sends steam through the superheater units and into the valves and pistons. The valve is set to the forward position, so it will push the piston on back, in turn pushing the main rod back, in turn rotating the wheels forward, powering the locomotive down the track. The fireman prepares his fire for the next trip around Roundhouse Mountain. Now let's catch a shot of locomotive number 190 departing the station so you can see how a steam locomotive works. 2 blasts of the whistle means the train's going to proceed forward. The engineer has opened up the throttle, allowing steam into the valves and into the pistons. And now, the train is off. I hope this helped you a little bit learn about steam locomotives. If you want to learn more, please comment down below, and I'll gladly make another video. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked what you saw. If you did, please give the video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell to be notified about future uploads. Also, join our Discord. Link is down in the description down below, and channel memberships are now active. You can join by the join button or the link in the description down below. And we hope to see you along the rusty rails really soon.